This is what you get: death on the American streets if you vote Democrat. I'm sorry. If the Democrats weren't so insane, if it were like your granddad's Republican Party or Democrat Party, maybe. But they don't care.
There is a civil war going on right now in the GOP, and honestly, a lot of it, I think, is retarded, quite frankly. There's, of course, important issues that need to be debated. The hot button issue, of course, is the state of Israel and our involvement in that said nation. But there's a lot of, if you will, mudslinging and finger pointing, and a lot of it is due to the fact that as drama heats up, individuals are looking for ways to keep their careers afloat and to expand their audiences. Drama ultimately drives clicks. That's the reality of the internet and especially the world of politics. But these things do have consequences in the real world. There is a debate about how much involvement X actually has upon the public psyche. There's the line, of course, that Twitter isn't real life. I think that's, of course, true to a degree, but I do think that Twitter affects real life. We clearly see this when it comes to individuals like Elon Musk buying Twitter and how it had a profound effect upon the 2024 election. Well, because a lot of the infighting going on right now in the GOP between individuals like Ben Shapiro and Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly being included, and other individuals, we have a situation in which not only historically is the GOP disadvantaged on winning the 2026 midterms, as typically the party who is in power loses the House of Representatives in the off-year election, but because of the debate around accelerationism, allowing the GOP party to burn down to the ground because it's not right-wing enough, dissatisfaction with the Trump administration when it comes to various policy proposals that it's been putting forward. The reality of the situation is it looks like the GOP might absolutely get blown out of the water. Now, I don't like that, and I'll give you guys my opinions in a second, but let's go ahead and take a look here. Megyn Kelly is starting to recognize the problem when it comes to all of this, and I think that what she says is worth listening to. Quick note, because I am a Christian and I believe everybody should try to abide by Christian norms, unfortunately she does swear in this, so that's not a good thing. But aside from that, I think what she has to say is very good. Let's give it a listen.
You have to vote Republican. I'm sorry. I don't care how mad you Republican Party. This is what you get: death on the American streets if you vote Democrat. I'm sorry. If the Democrats weren't so insane, if it were like your granddad's Republican Party or Democrat Party, maybe, but they don't care. They're the ones who caused it. They opened the borders without a thought for what it would do. And now that it's catching up with them, that's what you get from Hakeem Jeffries. I don't know. I'll look into it. Who the fuck is Sheridan Gorman? It's really what he's saying. I find this disgusting.
Well, there you have it. I think what she has to say is worth some reflection, that's for sure. If we remember back just a few years ago, we had mass migration in the context of illegal migration through an open border. We had a situation in which it was upwards of 10 million people came in under the Biden administration. Since that time, one of the things that Trump has done very well has been securing the border, continuing the building of the border wall, which doesn't get a whole lot of press, by the way, anymore because that seems to be a settled issue. But also, he has used ICE to do a lot of deportations. Now, a lot of people are dissatisfied with the numbers of deportations. I myself would tangentially include myself. I see, of course, mass migration as the greatest threat right now inside of our nation, aside from the spiritual crisis of sin, of course. But temporally, it is one of the biggest issues right now inside of our country that affects us all, psychologically, physically, sociologically, ideologically, economically, in every other way you can think of. And so what we have essentially now is two different policy proposals that are being put forward by the dissatisfied right and by the old guard right. We can have, on the one hand, the policy put forward by President Trump, which is essentially continue doing what we're doing, ramp up deportations as best we can, and get the job done. And then we have a lot of people on more of the dissatisfied right. You can think of individuals like Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly to a degree, of course, individuals like Nick Fuentes, who in some form or fashion seem to be pushing towards some more, if you will, escalation style politics. The idea of if we vote for Democrats, we'll be able to crash the Republican Party and force them into submission on voting for the issues in which we would put forward. Megyn Kelly's warning against this because the reality is if the Democrats do gain power in 2028, and not only 28 in the context of the presidency, but 2026 in the context of the midterms, in particular with the latter, you are going to see not only the halting of a lot of the great programs that Trump has put into place, but also the impeachment of Donald Trump and the if you will, merry-go-round of legal drama that will naturally ensue because of that. So the question is that what you want? Well, some people, of course, do. What is a good middle way, in my opinion? I think that there's, if you will, truth is found oftentimes in the middle. There's the old adage from both Aristotle and Thomas Aquinas that virtue is found in the mean between two extremes. I think on the one hand, the critique that there's not enough deportations going on is a fair critique. I do think that that's a fair critique. Although part of it has to be realized that we don't have as many ICE agents as we would like, even though we've hired hundreds of thousands of new people, it's still nowhere near what we need to be in. We need to be, if you will, mobilizing all police forces, the National Guard, the U.S. Marines, in Nick's opinion, to go after illegals. But unfortunately, that's not being done. So we can give a fair point, if you will, to that disgruntled behavior. On the other end of the spectrum, though, we do have to realize that by burning the system down, it's not going to actually help us any when it comes to preserving America and getting good economics back for young people. By the removal of mass migration, you'll have houses open up and hopefully the economy open up. So that issue of just burning everything down, that's a point on the other side. What's a good middle way? This is something that the founding fathers put in your hands for us to do, which is to primary bad candidates. Primary and get out these neocons that have been in power for decades. I've been thinking about this recently because in my own home state of Texas, we've been having, of course, a very famous election in the context of the GOP Senate race between John Cornyn, who's been in office most of my life, and I'm almost 30 years old, but most of my life, and the Attorney General Ken Paxton. And I honestly found it absolutely hilarious that Cornyn managed to eke out a victory, but at least in the first initial round of voting. But what's so interesting about this, of course, is the fact that so many people, when it comes to races, are willing to just allow incumbents who they are dissatisfied with to continue. Why is Lindsey Graham still in office when he has a fair amount of his constituents who aren't overall impressed with what he does? Well, they vote in him because they see him as just the lesser of two evils. He has all of the party backing. So there's just no point in voting for another candidate. Why? If you're dissatisfied with the candidate, then all you're doing is just, if you will, holding back the flood, but not actually accomplishing anything. The problem of the right for a really long time in this country has been, let's just, if you will, hold back the tides of progressivism and communism. Let's just hold back the left as long as we can. And slowly, as we're being pushed back and back, we'll give up an inch here, we'll give up a couple inches here, and we'll capitulate to those ideologies when they become really in vogue and fashionable because we don't want to lose elections. We're not actually going to be putting forward any type of conservative policy that pushes the left back to where they're not able to go forward. That's the problem. We need right now a new batch of young right-wing candidates to go into office, or even if there's an old right-wing candidate. Age really doesn't matter to me. If you're a super based older candidate, that doesn't matter to me either. You should be able to go forward and win these elections. We need a much healthier civic system. In my opinion, what I would love to see is something more like the UK, where we have, a dozen plus parties who none of them get the majority, and they have to work together to compromise ultimately to get stuff done. But because we live in a two-party state, if you will, the best course of action, in my mind, in our system is to be very proactive. Some of these guys who have massive platforms, Carlson included, could very easily come up with a candidates list across the board. He could have individuals inside of his organization vet all kinds of candidates and put forward those candidates, bring those candidates on to shows, give them the spotlight, give them the spectacle, and put forward candidates. And by contrast, if individuals don't like those said candidates from Tucker Carlson's perspective, they can put forward their own candidates. Ultimately, though, burning down the system, I don't think ultimately helps the American right at all. I think being proactive in actually getting rid of bad candidates does a good job of that. But it requires a lack of laziness, which is a good thing. It requires you to get off of your laurels, if you will, and actually be proactive in fighting that vice of slothfulness and putting forward good candidates. Anyway, that's just my perspective on everything. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'd be glad to hear it. And make sure and like this video, share it around, subscribe to the show. Coming up next, we're going to be talking about the No Kings failure protests. A lot of these things were astroturfed by far-left organizations. They weren't organic, if you will, symbols of mass unity in the United States. But one of the issues that's really interesting involved in that is the communist factor, the fact that communists are clearly out in the streets. And why is no one enforcing the Communist Control Act of the 1950s? Most people don't even know that act exists, but yet it's an act that needs to exist. What are the limits of free speech in my mind when it comes to ideologies that ultimately want to destroy the United States of America? That's coming up next. Subscribe to the show so you don't miss it, and take care, my friends. God bless you guys.